It's the Auburn Observer Podcast. Justin Ferguson here with my co-pilot, Dan Peck. Dan, I hope the folks at home are ready for an hour and a half of World Series Game 7 recap, because I don't think we have anything else to talk about right now, do we?
We love it. Justin Ferguson, ahoy. Great to see you, as always, here in the Wings 94.3 studio. We thank our pals at Wings 94.3 for letting us use the setup. Wings 94.3, your home for Auburn football, Auburn men's basketball, Auburn baseball, Tiger Talk, the Auburn Sports Network you can catch here locally on Wings 94.3, Auburn high school football as well. The playoff run getting started in high school football. You can catch that on Wings 94.3. You can also catch classic hits all day long, including, how about Turn the Page by Bob Seger playing right now as we record on Wings 94.3. They've also got some Billy Idol, some Def Leppard coming up. But, interesting that Turn the Page is playing in the Auburn-Opelika area as we turn on the microphones to record this.
Yeah, and that's not a bit. That is not a joke. That is literally, there are 55 seconds left in the song as I am saying these words right now. Like, I am watching it go on Wings 94.3. If you were listening to Wings 94.3 at 3:06 p.m. Central Standard Time, we're no longer on daylight because we fell back, you would be hearing Turn the Page by Bob Seger right now. So, Dan, it's time to talk about Turning the Page. This episode is already going to be a very different one. I don't feel compelled at all to recap the game as it happened, do the normal thing, because it doesn't really matter, right? Like,
I was worried because I didn't get to see a ton of the Auburn-Memphis exhibition.
Yeah.
And I'm worried we're not going to – I don't know how much of that
we'll talk about it.
We'll talk a little bit about it.
We'll talk some of that. We'll preview Bethune-Cookman towards the end of the show. We will get to some basketball because we can't – even though this is the biggest news of the season so far in football, remember around these parts, basketball is still the moneymaker, and that season starts Monday. So we are definitely going to get to some basketball. But – first things first, the football coach at Auburn is no longer the football coach at Auburn. Hugh Freeze fired on Sunday after Auburn lost 10-3 to Kentucky, a team that had lost 10 straight games in SEC play. Dan, history has a tendency to repeat itself. As I wrote on Sunday morning, it might be the only thing that repeats itself more than what Hugh Freeze was doing towards the end of his coaching tenure, by continuing to say that they're close. But we talked about this in the preview episode, and I had not, I'll be honest with you, Dan, I had not put this together in my head until you mentioned it the other day. But for the third straight season, immediately coming off of a road SEC win, Auburn comes back home and lays an absolute egg at home offensively against a team that shouldn't be near their talent level. In 2023, it was New Mexico State. In 2024, it was Vanderbilt. In 2025, it is Kentucky. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak. It was over. It felt over. This was a fitting end to the Hugh Freeze era at Auburn because it was a lot of the stuff we had seen before, just maybe in a more extreme version. And I feel like I've said that a few times this season, but like this one really doesn't. When the other team only scores 10 and you lose at home, and the other team has the second worst defense in the league, and the other team has lost 10 straight SEC games, it is, rock bottom doesn't even begin to cover it. And it played out in an extreme version of what we had seen the previous two seasons, with the New Mexico State loss and the Vandy loss.
It's another home loss where it felt like the crowd delivered and the defense delivered. And to me, the big question now that we have finality, we're talking about turning the page. Now that we've closed the book on the Hugh Freeze era at Auburn, the question to me is, where did Hugh Freeze go wrong in your mind? You saw every snap of this team over 3 seasons. What stands out to you as the lessons to learn from the Hugh Freeze experiment at Auburn?
I think the short answer is a pretty easy one. The game had passed him by. I think the sport of college football as we know it had passed him by. And I wrote about it when he was fired on Sunday, and you can check it out at The Observer if you haven't already. There's a few stories up there. One of them, the title is Auburn hired Hugh Freeze to turn back the clock. It didn't work. The central thesis of that story was basically like Hugh Freeze's last great season came 10 years ago. And like he had success at Liberty, but it came with an asterisk. His best season came in the COVID year. He had lost several games, including right before he got the Auburn job around those tenures. And it had been a while since he had, hey, this is a big win against a big team. This is a great season, right? And when Auburn hired him, it was, what he did at Ole Miss, let's do that here. We'll give you a second chance. You beat Alabama twice. You had this fun, up-tempo, explosive offense. We need that again. You can upset good teams. Let's bring that in. The problem is that had happened 8 years earlier when he got hired, and now we're 10 years, and you didn't get that. You never got to that point. Hugh Freeze's offense, I think, to literally its dying day in this Auburn offense or in this Auburn football season, was too simplistic. And I think you saw this in the Kentucky game where the spacing and the concepts and the it just wasn't taking anybody by surprise at all. And the problem is, and Gus Malzahn had some of this happen to him at Auburn, where in the era of the hurry up, no huddle and the fast-paced offense, you can be simple if you're playing fast. And it's like lethal simplicity. It doesn't take much, but if you're going so fast and you're executing it like that, the problem is the game changed. The rules changed. Literally, the rules changed. And defenses adapted. It never felt like Hugh Freeze adapted during his time at Auburn to the point where this offense took a step back from year one to year two. And remember, in year two, he took over play calling and was the main guy. And then he doubled down, and in year three, it got even worse to the point where they scored 3 points in his final game at Auburn to a bad Kentucky team.
Play calling has been under fire, and especially the last 2 seasons when Hugh Freeze took a more active role in the offense following the dismissal of Philip Montgomery. Play calling had been under more and more scrutiny. And last season felt like time and time again we were wondering if there was a disconnect between what that team was built to do and what Hugh Freeze was trying to have the team accomplish offensively.
Yeah.
This season, to me, the biggest failure, the single biggest failure of the year 3 season for Hugh Freeze is you went into this season without a quarterback that seemingly belongs in the conference. Like, and I don't want to come down too hard on these guys, but with Jackson, I mean,
he was the worst quarterback in the SEC last season.
He was the worst quarterback in the SEC last season. Hugh Freeze believed he could rehabilitate Jackson into something more than that. It did not work.
Nope.
For all the talk of Auburn being close in SEC games, and those games were competitive into the fourth quarter.
So was this one.
But you were not making any plays, or I mean, you weren't making nearly enough plays at the quarterback position, and as I think play callers will tell you, like you're really limited on what you can do as a play caller.
Oh yeah.
If we've said it before, like your identity on offense tends to be based on what your quarterback does well.
Right.
And when you have a short list of things that your quarterback excels at,
right,
trying to design an offense around that in this day and age is close to impossible.
Kentucky had the 9th worst passing defense in college football heading into this game, and Auburn barely tested it downfield. And, Freeze said after the game, oh, well, we probably should have pulled the trigger on some of those. And also there wasn't enough time. But here's the thing. Here's the problem. Here's the main problem with that. You were in a situation, if you were Hugh Freeze, where you were it was after the 34th game. It was the 34th game of his tenure, right? And to say nothing of the talk about patience, we'll get to that because that was beyond the pale at that point. Like, of the things that you're just like, what in the world? was said after a game under Hugh Freeze. That one. It's not the most egregious one. I don't think there's another one that I think is a little bit more egregious. I don't know if I'll get into all of it.
Would he have been better off giving a statement and not taking questions last night?
Probably.
I mean, for the first, and I've never.
To his credit, he did answer questions.
To his credit,
but it hardly helped him.
But for the first time, I think in the Freeze era, I would have said, you know what, man, go give a statement about how disappointed you are and how unacceptable this is, and then I don't know if it's going to get any better under cross-examination.
Did you notice there wasn't any of the "it starts with me," all that?
No.
That wasn't any of that last night. But going back to it from the start though with this offense, you were 3/4 of your way into your third year, and it's like, well, the play calling's not great. Well, the quarterback's not great. Well, the offensive line's getting beat. You've had almost 3 full seasons to fix that, and it's what I said. It's what I said during the game on Saturday.
He'll be a great podcaster, right? Because he can identify those problems, but it's like you're in charge of fixing them.
Correct. That's what the money's for. What's the common denominator? Because, how about this? A great example of it in this game. Ashton Daniels helps Auburn win against Arkansas. Now, they don't score a touchdown, and the offense didn't look great after halftime of that game. It gets worse against Kentucky. Jackson Arnold comes in, and it's not any better. And then Ashton Daniels comes back in. Peyton Thorne. This offense was better with Peyton Thorne, a guy that people were convinced, Auburn fans were convinced, some Auburn fans were convinced, for 2 years was the problem. Right? It didn't matter. It didn't matter who was on the offensive line. This was the most experienced this was one of the most experienced offensive lines in the country. This is an offensive line that had several guys on it that were highly touted and that were players that people really wanted, either in the portal or out of high school. It didn't matter what the permutations were up front. What's the common denominator? It didn't even matter who the offensive coordinator was.
Right.
What's the common denominator? And for 3 seasons, it's been Hugh Freeze. And he's been the biggest common denominator. And it's decreased over the last 3 years. Like the 2 seasons where he has been in charge of play calling for sure, that we know, it got even worse.
These were supposed to be his superpowers, right? Coming to Auburn. Yes. There was the belief that he could recruit the roster out of the state it was in when he arrived. There was that, but there was also the thought that this guy could identify quarterbacks. He was a master, at unlocking.
Yeah, like as much as I just said, okay, his best stuff was 10 years behind him, especially then. At least Malik Willis had got something. He got a good bit out of Malik Willis at Liberty, and it was the best of guy who's at Colorado now.
Salter.
Salter, Caden Salter.
I mean, there was the thought that this guy could identify quarterbacks and maybe identify guys that he didn't need the number 1 quarterback coming out of high school. He could pick someone on the clearance rack and find that guy and turn him into a winner. Or
how about if you pay all these receivers the money and get them, it'll lead to success. Cam Coleman's not even in the top dozen of SEC receivers in terms of yardage. And last night, unbelievably, Eric Singleton Jr., one of probably the best skill position player to make a transfer portal move this offseason, according to a lot of rankings, had less than a yard per target.
And it's got to be difficult for him to watch the team he left succeed like this, Joe.
Throw the ball better.
They're
throwing
lost,
the ball a lot better.
Yeah.
And that's not on Singleton, obviously.
No. But let's be clear about what Ashton Daniels represented last night too, because we were talking about it coming into the studio.
Change for the sake of change?
No. I think there was if you wanted to see the path to a year 4 for Hugh Freeze,
yes,
I think involved Ashton Daniels.
To be clear, I don't think Ashton Daniels was changed for the sake of change. It was the move they needed to make. It didn't work.
Right, and I think with Ashton Daniels, it was like the hope, the path to a year 4 for Hugh Freeze involved Ashton Daniels or someone else on the team looking like the answer at quarterback next year, because the thought that Hugh Freeze was going to have to go He's gonna find he's gonna find a way to a year 4, but go shopping in the portal again after Ashton Daniels is the 5th guy to start at quarterback at Auburn for Hugh Freeze, right? Like, at some point, you stop, you stop believing in the person doing the shopping, right? If they come up empty, this many times. And for Hugh Freeze, and very early on in the Kentucky game, I think it became clear Ashton Daniels did not seem like the answer.
No.
Short term or long term.
The only time they really stretched the field in that game was the Hail Mary at the end. And this was a team. Remember, last week Tennessee was 7 of 7 on deep balls against them. This was one of the worst big play pass defenses in America, and Auburn never even threatened against them. And that was part of the reason why I think Ashton Daniels wasn't the starter to begin with. That he wasn't a guy who could stretch the field. That was the guy who was going to do a lot of the short stuff, and then maybe every now and then he would air it out. But you can't combine that with an offensive line that looked woefully unprepared to play in this game, right? Kentucky set career highs or season highs by far as a team in sacks and tackles for loss in this game. And Jeremiah Cobb has had a good season, but if Kentucky's going even box count and saying, okay, we can go one-on-one everywhere else, or not even have to play safeties back, and we're going to be fine because we don't trust you to throw the ball. It was the thing that everybody had always talked about in the past, where it's if they don't trust you to throw it, you can't run it. And he only had 2 explosive runs all game, and they were just getting stacked up. That offensive line, more often than not, was just getting beat. They were just getting beat by a Kentucky defensive front that is better than their secondary, but it wasn't this wasn't A&M. This wasn't Georgia. It wasn't even Missouri up front.
And perennially, time and time again, to the point that, you can just post one Simpsons screenshot, right? And folks know what you're talking about. Hugh Freeze would say that Auburn was close. He would say that Auburn was close. And to be clear, in every fourth quarter that Auburn played in conference this season, the games were close.
Yeah.
And
how about this? Here's the biggest. Here was the death blow to this tenure, I think. It's the second half, and Auburn is down 10-3, and people are leaving because they have no faith that this team is going to score that touchdown to tie this game up.
And some of
faith.
Some of them are YouTube TV subscribers, so they can't even go home and watch the game.
Yeah, exactly.
They're just leaving.
They're just leaving.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of boos, and there were chants of fire Hugh out of, and that wasn't everybody. There were pockets of that. But
it was over before then, though. It was over before the team walked off the field.
There were chunks of the student section missing at halftime, and it was a tie game. It was 3-3. Now it was sad it was 3-3, but it was a tie game. Auburn still had a chance to win, and Auburn still had a chance to win until the very end. But people had given up. They had seen this movie too many times before, and they were giving up. They were absolutely giving up. And so that's the thing is with Freeze, the game had passed him by, I think we could say, on offense, and he never really adapted. He never really got an answer, a fix. He kept doubling down and tripling down on his way of doing things and saying it was close. And yes, on the scoreboard, things were close. But it had hardly anything at all to do with what Hugh Freeze is doing. It had a lot to do with what happened on defense. And guess what? Hugh Freeze had as much input on the Auburn defense as I did, as you did. It was DJ Durkin's show. He's the head coach, sure. He has to have a relationship with these players. He talks to them, he sets the tone, all that, the culture, all that stuff is better. But in terms of how they played on game day, he's not that guy. He was not that guy. And so that's the thing is to the very end, you saw an offense that never evolved with the times, and it was stuck in the past, and it just couldn't execute what they wanted to do. And it's it's evaluation in the quarterback. You miss on the quarterback spots, but if you miss with several quarterbacks, it's like you were saying, it's like at some point you got to look around. It's like, okay, well, who keeps picking them? And even if it is, you picked 4 bad ones or whatever, 3, 4 bad ones, and they all just didn't work out. And, and it wasn't a case of, you didn't do right by them, or it was on there. Even the most charitable read of saying, like, on their own, they were not that. Well, you don't get that many opportunities to do so. And that's the thing. It's just, it never seemed to matter. And this is a coaching tenure that felt like if you just threw more star talent at it, if you threw more recruiting stars at it, the problems would fix themselves over time. But coaching matters. And we're also in an era of college football right now, Dan, where Indiana might be the best team in America. Guess what they're not doing? Recruiting near the level that Auburn is. But they are now.
and that's a coach hitting quarterback evaluation out of the park.
They are now. But I think Indiana's class is ahead of Auburn's right now because of course it is.
That's a coach hitting quarterback evaluations out of the park, and he doesn't need to lose to the quarterbacks first before he evaluates them, right? How many of the potential solutions for Auburn at quarterback are guys that beat Auburn? People will mention, like, imagine Auburn's record with
Diego Pavia doesn't get to go 3-0 against Hugh Freeze.
Imagine's Auburn. If you're just playing fantasy football, in this situation, like, imagine Auburn's record with Pavia the last year and a half. If he leaves for Auburn instead of Vanderbilt after the New Mexico State game, imagine Auburn's record with Mendoza this year, who beat Auburn at Cal last year before deciding to go to Indiana. Beat Auburn with Cal at Auburn. Last season. I mean, you've seen that before. And, yeah, I mean, I've referenced it before on the podcast, Justin, but the Mike Leach quote that, like, every coach wants to be the coach who can fix the inaccurate athletic quarterback, and no coach actually does. And Hugh Freeze's belief that he can fix quarterbacks, I think, is one of the things that, that's and it seemed to guide his evaluation of these guys, and it didn't work, and it seemed to get worse throughout the course of his tenure, to the point where it's year 3, and just like Tommy Tuberville's last year, 2008, I think just like Gene Chiswick's last year, 2012, just like Brian Harson's last year, 2022, you can make the case there's not an SEC worthy quarterback on the roster, like, and it's to, like, at some point now Malzahn had Bo Nix in his last year. It's different, 2020.
Yeah.
But every other dismissal of this century.
I think it might be too early to call that on Deuce Knight just because we haven't seen him, but yes.
But for this season, a guy ready to go this year. Like, I'm not. Yeah, I mean, you're right. You can mention freshmen who could contribute someday. But as far as guys that were ready to help the team win right now, like, it is barren at that position, and that's something that's happened to other Auburn coaches before. And it turns out there were a lot of really good players on that 2008 team. It leads to 2010. There were a lot of really good players on the 2012 team. It leads to 2013. There are, pretty much anyone will tell you, there are really good players on this Auburn roster.
Some will be in the NFL next year. Some will be somewhere else, and Auburn hopes they might be able to keep some of them.
But when you're rolling snake eyes at that position, it feels like a lot of the other stuff is deck chairs on the Titanic.
Especially when you have an offense that is like, if your quarterback's not playing well, like you there's no disguising it. There's no hiding it. There were no easy answers. It was a lot of like, well, the quarterback just needs to make the right decision every single time and overcome it for us. And that's the other thing I wanted to point to, and I mentioned it just a second ago, is like, you just throw enough recruiting at it and it will work out. That's not how football is played, especially these days. There's really good teams that don't recruit at a high level that are competing right now, like Vanderbilt. In these certain spots. I mean, Kentucky's not beating you in the recruiting battles. Arkansas last year wasn't beating you in the recruiting battle, and yet they did beat you. It was just like, okay, well, once you just keep recruiting and it'll work. The team got worse the more star power. Like, think about what he inherited, Dan. Think about what Hugh Freeze inherited in 2023. That might be the only team that he coached at Auburn that goes to a bowl game. Think about that. And that was the team where all year it was, well, we just got to keep recruiting, and hey, come in here and help us fix it. We've got the talent gap. And then you get more and more talent. And this year, talent gap was never going to be an excuse this year. We already know that. We know that. But I think one of the things that hurt Auburn in the long run under Hugh Freeze is you spent multiple seasons claiming that recruiting was going to fix this, and nothing changed in the meantime. Nothing on the field that could have been fixed, adapted, tweaked, changed in the meantime happened. And so in 2025, what do you have? The same structure, just with more recruiting talent on it. And guess what? Recruiting star rankings alone do not win you football games. In the macro, they're usually a lot more correct. But if being an awesome recruiter equaled being an awesome head coach and having awesome teams, Jimbo Fisher would still be at Texas A&M right now.
And we wondered, like, I know the win-loss record is what it is. We wondered if the team got better from year 1 to year 2. Right, and it was just a matter of, okay, well now there are like
the defense did
in year 1 it felt like in year 1 it felt like there were clear talent limitations, and in year 2 it felt like, okay, those talent limitations aren't there now. Now you can question strategy. Now you can question play calling and whether
in year 1 they were better at scoring and converting in the red zone. His last 2 games.
In year 2, you ran into the problem where you were losing to inferior teams. I know you had New Mexico State in year 1, but in year 2, you had the Cal game and the Arkansas game, and it's like, ooh, this feels like a different problem than you had in year 1. I don't think the team feels better from year 2 to year 3 when you look at what you've seen. Yeah, it's the same, and it's worse offensively.
Yeah, and it should have been better.
Yes.
I mean,
and that's as damning an indictment as anything for a coach who's supposed to have his imprint on the offense. To have that result from year 2 to year 3.
With his back up against the wall as an offensive-minded head coach and playing the worst 2 teams in the SEC on defense in his last 2 games as head coach at Auburn, Hugh Freeze's offense had 21 drives and scored 1 touchdown, and it was on the first one. They lost a game with the other team scored 10 points. You know the last time that happened at Auburn, Dan?
Ooh.
1991.
Ooh.
Before I was even born.
Yeah.
I've been doing this way too long. Like, it's crazy, man. Like, it is absolutely crazy that you got to this point on offense and that you had the audacity to keep coming back and saying it's close. Or, I mean, there was Brian Matthews a couple weeks ago. Brian Matthews at Auburn Sports. Love B-Matt. He asked Hugh Freeze in a press conference. It was like an interview after practice. And he was like, hey, would you be willing to hire another offensive coordinator and just give it over to him and kind of be more of a CEO if you're back next season? And I'm going to read the quote because it really sticks out to me. He said, when I look at the schematics of what we're doing, they're good stuff. It's just getting the details right as coaches and demanding that they are done properly. Obviously, it's on the kids, too, to execute it at a high level. I don't see that in the schematics. Look at the first halves. These are good numbers you're putting up, but we haven't been consistent enough. They were calling the right plays. To the very end, they were calling the right plays. They're close.
And how much of that read almost
insane,
and how much of that read almost as a deflection of, well, I shouldn't be the one to blame because I'm calling the right plays. And the problem, of course, is in year 1, you can sort of say, well, I'm doing everything I can with the roster that I've got.
Yeah.
In year 3, it's all on you, right? If the quarterbacks aren't playing well, that's on you because you signed them. If there's a certain position group that's a perennial issue, like in year 3.
How about this, Dan? How about this? And I know it's tougher to do this in this day and age. Oh, well, the transfer portal quarterbacks didn't work out. Well, you had 3 years to sign one out of high school and teach them and develop them on your own.
And you signed several out of high school and then sort of punted seemingly on doing.
You could have had a guy starting at quarterback this season potentially who had been here for multiple years. But you didn't.
How about this? I mean, if we're rethinking strategies, you could have gone heavy on freshmen and sophomores when you arrived instead of betting big on the transfer portal And then you'd have a younger roster that was familiar with your system, so you didn't have to go with a ton of transfers after every season like Auburn had to. Like you could have, I mean,
but instead you came in and said, well, the recruits are going to come, and you just kept like it was going to be recruiting over your head and all that. And now we get to the point of the program where I talk about the thing that absolutely just blew my mind last night. And I wrote about it. It was, look, desperate times, desperate measures. Sometimes we get into these situations where it's like, all right, writing and saying the same stuff again is useless. It's time to shake things up. Because guess what? I walked off that field on Saturday night knowing it was over. Done. Period. He was not going to coach another game at Auburn. It was just going to be what time the announcement was going to be made, what time the firing was going to be made official, right?
There was originally a plan for an earlier podcast taping.
Right.
Pull people behind the curtain a little bit.
And so I wrote an observation and not observations from this game. And it was Hugh Freeze, again, after game 34 as the head coach at Auburn. He said he wished he could ask for more patience. Now, he said he knew he couldn't get it, but he wishes he could. Dan, 34 games. Gene Chizik got 25 after winning a national championship. There's more. That's the biggest one. There's more. I had
and then hindsight,
Tommy Tuberville had 25 games after I think it was an 11-win season.
After 06. Tuberville gets 2 years after 06.
I mean, heck, very different circumstances, very different situations, but like Terry Bowden's gone like right after winning an SEC West title, playing in the SEC championship game.
Gus gets between the SEC championship game in 17 and his dismissal.
It was like 43 or something like that. I did the number. It was not far off.
Yeah, I mean it's in the ballpark, and so no, I think that like I understand why he would want more patience because he hasn't shown enough in 34 games.
But you earn that, especially almost all the way through year 3. You earned that, and it was just more of wishing and wanting and saying, okay, we're close, than actually going out and doing it. The problem is this is a results-oriented business, right? And you come into the press conference afterwards and say multiple times that you think you're close. Oh, we just need more patience. I wish I could get it. I know people aren't going to give it to me. Darn it. Like, you know. And then there's a line after the game that stuck with me, and it didn't really stick with me till it didn't really stick and settle in with me until this morning as I went back and go through it. And he says, I've said all year long, my job is to get this team ready to play and win games. We have failed to do that this year, and it's frustrating. I still believe we're really close and know that the team plays hard for this university, and it's sickening that we haven't delivered. No one wants to do that more than I. My family loves it. Our staff loves it. But at the end of the day, I'm frustrated too. Love what? Love getting paid to be the head coach at Auburn? Well, yeah, I think a lot of people would. But, like, there was so much of the – and he said this, and the other thing that's – it's kind of driven me crazy, you know, recently about the, you know, well, we're in a tough situation, and, you know, I'm here to help lead – and it's like the tough situation is losing football games.
The platitudes.
Yeah, right, and it's just – hear me say this. Coaches, even at the collegiate level, helping guys – and like, you know, we talk all sports, helping student athletes, guys and girls, develop as people and help, you know, build character and all that. That stuff's important. That stuff's never going to go away from coaching. But that's not what you get paid money to do, right? And that's the problem. That can't be the shield. And I think too often it was a shield until the very end where it's like, well, we're close. We just need. It's those, we feel like we're doing everything else right except for those pesky on-field results aren't coming through for us. And it's like, you don't get paid millions of dollars to be a nice guy.
And it's also like it's on-field results on the side of the ball you're supposed to own, right? This would be concerning. And you know what? At this point, probably still unacceptable. But I raised the point earlier in the season, Justin, that if Auburn were 0-4 in conference play, but they had gotten winning football from the offense and from the quarterback, and they'd still lost the games. If they were losing shootouts in year 3 with Hugh Freeze, it would be a problem. But I don't think you'd be. I don't think you'd be talking about firing him necessarily in year 3 if the issue was that you were getting overwhelming offensive production and still losing games.
No, it'd be like early career Malzahn, where it's like we just got to find the right defensive coordinator.
I think that's where you'd be. But when the problem is that you're getting winning football from the defense over and over again, you're getting game after game this season where the Auburn defense is delivering. And holding teams considerably below their averages, and you're still losing these games. The defense and the crowd showing up for you over and over again, and the offense just not having.
And in this game, the special teams just not making a ton of mistakes anymore.
And this time, I think you can raise the question of like should Auburn have made the move earlier in the season? To me, it felt like.
I had thought you have to wear one at one point. Like this is bad, and it's like you got to hit rock bottom. And scoring 3 points against Kentucky is as rock bottom as you're going to get.
Yeah, if the question is why now and not after Missouri, like I think letting a guy go after he's lost 4 competitive games to playoff teams, including one in double overtime.
I had said after that game that I think they needed to lose to a team that they should have beaten.
Yes. Like I think this pushed it into, especially if you're looking at parallels this year. Like if you're looking at what got Deshaun Foster fired or Sam Pittman or Billy Napier or James Franklin.
James Franklin's a great example.
Or
Brian Kelly.
Or Brian Kelly. Like they're like of the dismissals there have been Gundy. Like of the dismissals, the major conference.
Forgetting that one.
I know
that one happened.
But of the dismissals, the major conference level, like a lot of them either like you got your doors blown off. And it was pretty clear that your support had evaporated, or you're losing a game, even if it's close. You're losing a game to a team you should absolutely not be losing to in a situation where you shouldn't be losing it.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, like most of those are that. Like I even think like wasn't the kill and blow for Pry at Virginia Tech losing to Old Dominion like they did?
Yeah, and with Florida, it's not even a loss. Right, like you beat State.
It was a matter of timing.
Yeah, you beat State.
That one was the most like, we knew like you've been a dead man walking for years. It's time to walk.
Yeah, so I mean, it's so I think with Auburn, like I understand, like I think it would have been aggressive and maybe a bit of a rush to judgment to do this after Missouri, but. I'm just like you. I thought it was like once it was clear.
I think the sample size was quite large enough at that point.
And once it was clear, and it was in the first half for me last night, that once it was clear he was out of answers for the rest of this season, and even if he had
I thought their best hope of scoring was either going to be another pick six, which I think New Boy Fagans was trying to do and ended up fumbling it back, and that's a tough break, or it was going to be Jeremiah Cobb was going to have to break something off the edge, and it's going to have to be a home run from 60 yards out.
Yeah, and once it was
their only points came because they had an interception return.
Once you're that out of options in November of year 3 for an offense that has consistently underwhelmed,
and you weren't playing, the 85 Bears on defense.
No.
You're playing Kentucky, who had just gotten lit on fire a week earlier by Tennessee.
And we're seeing other teams, for all the, yes, it's true that the 4 defenses Auburn played to open conference play are good. That is true. We're seeing quarterbacks have success against any, pick any of those teams. Quarterbacks had a good game this year against them.
Yes.
The thought that it's okay that we had 4 games of, 4 games of woeful passing.
It's like people try to, it's like, you got to consider who they've played. How about consider the fact that this is the worst red zone offense in the SEC of the decade?
The stat you talk
2
about
2 years running.
You talk about things that stick with you, and we looked it up on the air on a previous episode last week. Like when you told me what Auburn was in red zone passer rating this season, and it's like, and you look and behind Auburn, it's mostly mid majors.
Yes,
like it's Auburn's bottom 10 going into the Kentucky game. So I don't even know now, Justin. Like Auburn was bottom 10. In red zone passer rating going into Kentucky, and most of the teams behind Auburn in the bottom 10 were mid majors. So it's like Auburn was realistically of major conference college football teams. Yeah,
Maryland, Nevada, Army, Louisiana Tech, South Carolina, UCF, and UMass.
Like to be that close to the bottom in red zone passer rating. And I know it's one isolated stat, but it tells the story I mean, you talk about needing to turn more red zone possessions into touchdowns, needing to turn more goal to goes into touchdowns. Hugh Freeze himself talked about critical downs, and they weren't making enough plays on the critical downs. Doesn't get more critical than in the red zone, and this team, that was a problem that got worse under Hugh Freeze to the point where
it got worse the more involved he got with play calling on offense, and the more talent, quote unquote, they had on their team. It's a bad sign, really, really bad sign. All right. I mean, a few more before we go, before we move on, because I want to talk candidates and I want to talk early, like potential moves here. 2 losses under 500 in conference or at home should be impossible at Auburn. But do you know the record? Did you know the record of Auburn's games against power conference opponents at home under Hugh Freeze?
I know.
I'll give you a hint. They only won 2.
I know that Auburn lost. Well, hold on. Hugh Freeze lost 11 games at Jordan-Hare, but one of them's New Mexico State. So are we going 2-10?
2-10.
2-10. With a loss to New Mexico State on top.
Yes. Should be impossible. Should be impossible to do that. Those people showed up and were loud.
That's the part. That's that's crushing.
Pro.
Is that for 34 games and for however many.
They had to fire and move on because it was starting to feel like Stockholm syndrome.
I mean, the fact that those
hey, real quick. I'm not going to be too flippant with this. If you showed up and you gave your credit to you, this is this is the most loyal fan base in America. Like it just is. And you have given a lot to Auburn financially, but also just in time, energy, emotional balance, support, all that, with little to no payoff in return. And guess what? Whoever's the next head coach is going to be able to walk right into a situation where they know they're going to have that loyalty. And people can say, we'll talk about this here in a brief moment, people can say, well, this market's too crowded. Wow, Auburn's having to jump in. Man, that's real tough for them to be in. This place has the juice. This place has the resources. You just got to get the right guy in there. And that's easier said than done. Like there are no magic bullets, but like, yeah, I mean, it's just incredible. Then this was the other one that stood out to me. Jacob Waters at the OA News had it. Hugh Freeze coached 34 games at Auburn. In 10 of them, they only scored 1 touchdown on offense. Now, how does that work?
This season,
one or less. I guess.
I know this season in however many conference games. What Kentucky is number 6, 6 SEC games, 5 touchdowns. One of them is the A&M touchdown, with Atkins.
Yes,
giving you the ball at the 3. So the others, there's 2 Cam Coleman passing touchdowns.
Yep.
There's the Omar Mabson rushing touchdown against Missouri. Mm-hmm. And I'm forgetting how'd you score against Georgia? Jackson had a rushing touchdown, I think, against Georgia. That's the list. Those are the 4 touchdowns you've scored on genuine drives in 6 SEC games this year.
Again, Hugh Freeze was hired. 2 of the biggest reasons why he was hired at Auburn were to have offense, to have explosive, competent offense, to turn back the clock on offense. Didn't happen. And to beat the teams that are going to have a little bit more of a talent advantage than you, to pull off the upsets like he did at Ole Miss. Well, by the end, he was losing to teams that, like, he was losing upsets, not pulling them off. One more thing. The announcement, the statement from Cohen.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the announcement in the stadium that it was basketball season.
Shout out Rick Smith.
That was another moment that felt.
But the John Cohen statement. Quote, I have informed Coach Freeze of my decision to make a change in leadership with the Auburn football program. Coach Freeze is a man of integrity, and we are appreciative of his investment in Auburn and his relentless work over the last 3 years in bolstering our roster. Our expectations for Auburn football are to annually compete for championships, and the search for the next leader of Auburn football begins immediately. The nicest thing they could say at the end was the roster got better.
And I thought it was nice of them to mention that, right? They could have ended the sentence. They could have ended the sentence earlier and just said, he's a man of integrity and he worked hard.
But isn't that
at Auburn.
like one of the most like backhanded like things you've ever kind of seen? where it's like, well, the roster got better. Couldn't do anything with it, but the roster got better.
The roster got better at certain places. The roster,
and also
the
in this day and age,
better.
when the roster can leave whenever they want, you gotta it's results. It's results that matter. It's results that matter. We can talk about recruiting, and recruiting's important, and we can talk about transfer portal, and transfer portal is important and all that, and it takes up so much of the offseason, but it's what happens on 12 Saturdays or on one Friday in the case of the Baylor game. So that's it for Hugh Freeze.
That's that.
That is that. Let's talk the future. Let's go ahead and dive in with this, because I've got a little bit of insight here. I'm not going to be like, ooh, Mr. Scoops, because I'm not that guy. But I do have a little bit of insight just talking to some folks who are plugged in more than I am in coaching circles and all that nationally. I wrote a list of candidates at the Observer. I did a fun little experiment with that where it just popped in my head a few weeks ago. I thought, that'd be fun. I tried to find the closest comparisons I could find in the coaching market to ex-Auburn head coaches. It's like, if Auburn wanted to get like a Pat Dye type, who could that look like? What would that look like? Or a Tommy Tuberville, or a Gus Malzahn, or a Gene Chizik, or a Brian Harsin, or a Hugh Freeze. Mm-hmm. And it was a fun list. I thought it was for me, it was a fun way of doing the candidate list differently. And when I got to the end of it, I realized that like my list is not exhaustive of like every potential candidate that would kind of make sense at this point as we're talking on Sunday, November 2nd. But it was a pretty good overlap for a lot of it. Let's dive in, Dan. I think there are a few names that are on everybody's list right now early on that makes sense for Auburn. And where do you want to start?
There are a couple ways you can start this conversation.
Oh, you lead the way because I've just been plugged into this.
I'm gonna pepper you with some questions. I do have like 4 categories of coaches, and I'm tempted to, but there's a guy who doesn't really fit neatly in, so I kind of want to start there. What do you say to people who, and I know a lot of different folks who are saying, plan A should be you make Lane Kiffin the biggest offer you can, and then see what happened. What do you respond like to sort of that thinking? And because I think it's and I don't need to be sold on what Lane Kiffin would do at Auburn. Mm-hmm. To me, the selling point there is, well, why would Lane Kiffin say yes? Like, explain to me what Auburn offers right now that Lane doesn't already have at Ole Miss or couldn't find potentially from another suitor.
I don't think that that's a bad idea at all. I just wonder if it's worth going down that road again. Like, sure, like you can ask and you can you can gauge interest and all that, but he turned you down 3 years ago, and he's only gotten better there, and it's only gotten more set in.
He's only gotten more valuable to Ole Miss in the meantime too. I keep finding parallels.
Here's the thing: he's the best sounding candidate at LSU and Florida to me. But he might be better off just staying at Ole Miss, because if he can make the playoff at Ole Miss, right, a place that is like he is going to be their best coach.
He's the Bruce Pearl of Ole Miss football.
Correct.
Like he means,
and there's value to that. There's value to that. You can't sit here, and we've talked about this in the past. You can't sit there and be like, well, there's no reason Bruce Pearl would ever leave Auburn, and then also turn around and be like, well, why would Lane Kiffin stay at Ole Miss? Like, it's very similar situation. So I see it. I see the value in it. I think Kiffin, again, like I had said 3 years ago, I think Kiffin would make a lot of sense at Auburn. It would be a lot of fun. At this point, though, he stays at Ole Miss, he can continue to compete in the playoff. He comes to Auburn, it is not a right off the bat kind of thing, because you just don't, because it's a different roster and a different situation. And look, man, Auburn's got to cleanse a little bit, or a lot of bit in a case like losing's been a habit for this program for a while. It's like it may take some time to get it out and to build something sustainable, right? So yeah, I mean I haven't really gotten into the Kiffin thing because I think you can go in other directions and get really without having to bark up that tree again and get burned for the second time. I understand the people who will come across that, and I think everything we said about Lane Kiffin 3 years ago as a candidate at Auburn has only gotten stronger from here.
So with before we get into, I totally agree. By the way, I think that's the right approach on the potential of Kiffin as a candidate in this race. When you think about what led Auburn to freeze, like I think the big overcorrection or the correction, you can decide if it was an overcorrection or not. But it's like you look at the attitude that Harsin seemingly had towards recruiting, and there was the belief, okay, well,
and I also think fit. You need like knowing this area, knowing this conference,
and there's but I'm thinking and that's important too. But I think especially when you think about like, okay, well, maybe with Freeze you can get someone who can turbocharge recruiting and recruit you out of this problem. And I think taking that approach to this, if quarterback has been an enormous problem for 3 years, and especially this year, emphasizing somebody with a track record of production, getting production out of college quarterbacks, or finding someone with a genuine track record, recent success and big time success.
That's the thing. It's recent success.
Doing that, I think, would be something to emphasize. Now, I know that's not every candidate out there, but it's like,
but also you don't want to fall into the trap again of what happens in these situations when that head coach, when offense doesn't work, because we've seen that now. Was his third coach in the row?
The problem is, I think that it's understandable that people are leery of offensive coordinators.
Yes.
Because while you may have, while they may have recent success to point to, you're marrying a system when you do that, and systems tend to have shelf lives in college football. Mm-hmm. And what happens if yours is closer to the expiration date than you realize?
And you're going to be less willing to change off of that.
And that's not every offensive coach, because I'll tell you what, let's talk. Let's get into my categories here. Coaches with Auburn ties, like coaches who have at some point, coaches who could be candidates for this job who have at some point worked for Auburn, right? Because you've got, I know there's reports of a Rhett Lashley new contract at SMU.
He got a new contract at SMU on Friday, and then they turned around to beat Miami.
Right, and I'm tempted to sort of leave him off of this.
I had him on my list just because it's like, I don't know the buyout situation there because SMU's private and they don't have to let that go. The rumor was they were going to pay him top 10 money, which is wild, but SMU's got that money. Yep. He's probably not.
And they made a big off. They made a big splash when they poached USC's basketball coach,
Enfield.
Yeah, Enfield. When Enfield left USC for SMU, there was a belief that it was a huge money deal.
Yeah, and so SMU's got money. I mean, they're well positioned to be one of the top two.
If you know your college football history, you know that SMU has money.
But also, in this ACC, they are well positioned to be one of the top teams. I mean, for a while now, they are in a good spot with Clemson being down, with Miami being Miami. They're in a really, really good spot. The word was that Arkansas was interested in him. Obviously, he was an Arkansas guy. SMU's a better job than Arkansas. Is Auburn that much better of a job than SMU? I don't know. I mean, because money-wise, SMU's got it. It depends on what you value, right? It depends on what you want out of. We know that the ceiling at Auburn is you can win a championship here. We don't really know in the modern era if the ceiling at Arkansas is if you can win a championship. So do you make that jump to do that, or do you stay at a place like SMU where you're going to get a lot of money and a lot of support, and you're in a good position to continue to compete right now and be a potential playoff team? I don't think that SMU team is particularly that great this year. I think they've already taken 3 losses, but they have a really good shot at having another 9-10 win season and keeping that thing rolling.
2 highly successful college head coaches, very different types of guys, but 2 highly successful offensive-minded head coaches who have ties to Auburn. Arizona State's Kenny Dillingham.
Yep.
Missouri's Eli Drinkwitz.
Yeah,
I could see. Yeah.
Drink makes a lot of sense. I think anybody who's got an SEC opening would be wise to look at Drink. I know obviously he has that Auburn tie. I have heard he still holds Auburn in very high regard, and the people here. I mean, it was the place where he got his college coaching career started. I do think he can win at Missouri. This is back-to-back double-digit win seasons at Missouri. Could be a 3rd straight this year. He's in a really good spot.
I want to say, though, real quick on that.
A place like Florida, a place like LSU, a place like Auburn could give him more. It's just better access to talent. More
pressing than Ole Miss in that situation. I think that
yes.
the what folks say about Lane Kiffin having access to more if he were to jump. I think it's more true of Drinkwitz.
Yes.
Like, I think it's harder to like. I could see Lane Kiffin one day.
A little harder to get elite talent in Missouri than it is at Ole Miss, and I know but Ole Miss has done that by positioning themselves in the transfer portal race.
I could see Lane Kiffin having a team good enough to win a playoff game at Ole Miss someday.
Missouri's kind of not there yet.
That feels very difficult to imagine in this climate at Missouri, and I think that's why, like you said.
And I compared him. He was the Tuberville pick in the comp, where it's a sitting head coach, where you could say, "Hey," he was the Malzahn. It was the Malzahn comp. My bad. Clark Lee was the Tuberville comp. I'm sure we'll get to him. But yeah, it's kind of like it's a sitting SEC head coach. I think other teams, Florida, I think LSU could do well by. He would be a good pickup for anybody because he's a guy that, again, what are you going with here? It's not, hey, have you won in the SEC? Did you win in the SEC 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago? It's, are you winning in the SEC right now? And that carries a lot of weight. I think Drink would make a ton of sense at Auburn. That's another situation where if he keeps on the track he is right now, he could be one of the best coaches Missouri's had in their mind. And, there's a lot. Continuity. And, we are also, Dan, in a day and age in the playoff with the way this field is and the way college football is, where you can look around and say, I might not have to go to a former national champion in order to compete at a really, really high level in the sport anymore. That might be where we're at. So that's something to consider. Kenny Dillingham. Really interesting case for Kenny. He was only here at Auburn for a year. Didn't call plays, but a lot of people really liked the work he did with Bo Nix in his freshman year. He was a good recruiter. He goes to Florida State and was successful. He goes to Oregon and is really successful. Goes to Arizona State, inherits a mess at Arizona State. They have a terrible first year, but it was a bad situation. They're left for dead when they move to the Big 12. They win the Big 12 last year. They make the playoff.
Picked last in the preseason.
Yes.
Last year, turning around, win the conference.
And Arizona State on its way to having probably not a playoff team this year. I don't know if they're still in the hunt for the Big 12 title, but it's still going to be a really good year for him. The thing with Kenny is he's home. He is home. That he is an Arizona guy, Arizona State guy through and through. Yes, Auburn would be a step up because the SEC compared to the Big 12, I think in money and all that makes it. But it's home. This place is home for him. That is a fan base and a program, a native son who comes home and helps them out of a dark place and puts them into a spot where they are winning consistently. It carries a lot of weight. It carries a ton of weight. We're going to say that maybe with a couple other candidates here. Kenny, though, being that far off, there is some Auburn ties. He was well liked at Auburn. I made the comp with him. Him and Rhett Lashley, both of those guys, my comp for them for Auburn was Gene Chizik. And not in – you have to stretch this one a little bit, but it's you were a coordinator at Auburn when things were good. And you went off, and now we can bring you back and try to get that going again. And I think both of those guys are in that similar camp. It's not a perfect comparison, obviously, but Kenny would be a lot of fun, and Kenny would be a guy that I think would have a ton of energy. I really truly wonder if he's not a guy who's going to be at Arizona State for a very long time.
Are there any candidates beyond? I'm thinking of former Auburn coordinators now coaching in college football and now coaching around. Is there anybody else who comes to mind? I mean, I guess Jimbo Fisher was a position coach or a GA or whatever.
Yeah.
Jimbo Fisher has Auburn ties.
I'm sure.
Do you want to briefly discuss?
I'll just say the thing about Jimbo is that he seems to it's like the Hugh hire all over again, where you are banking on recruiting and you're banking on in the past successes, and the last time how it ended for you in your last 10 years was not very good, and now you're okay, well maybe it can go beyond that, and you have to wonder if time's passed there. Jimbo's also making a whole lot of money not to do anything. I know he wants to coach again, and kind of like Freeze, he's probably going to campaign to get a job again. With Freeze, he was really openly campaigning to get an SEC job, and Auburn gave it to him. But I don't know.
This could be.
I have another one though.
This could be delusion, but I'm thinking that between the state of the roster at the moment and what we just talked about with the fan support, the fact that this isn't compared to Colorado the year before Dion got there.
Yeah.
When it's no, these games are the stadium is empty. Like no one is going to know. Like it's a different. Like I think
you don't need a recruiter.
It's a different level of desperation, is what I would say. And I would think that the level
you need a guy who wins football games.
The level of desperation that would require pushing the Jimbo Fisher button, right, is not there at Auburn. Could it be there at Arkansas? I don't know. Maybe. Like is let's see who they end up hiring, and we'll see if it seems like a better idea than Jimbo Fisher, who maybe could recruit them out of a big problem. You know what I mean? Like there's places in major conference college football. Like if Saturday night was Kentucky's last win of the season, because I don't know how many.
I don't know how that's going on.
I don't know how many more.
Kentucky fans mad that they won.
Yeah, if that happens and they have to pay Mark Stoops his reported $40 million buyout at the end of this season, maybe Jimbo Fisher at a bargain rate would be an idea there. I do not think Auburn
James
is it.
Franklin.
You know what? Well, I've got the clearance rack at the end here, I think that something like that would be. I don't think you're at that level of desperation. I don't think
calling James Franklin at the clearance rack. That's tough.
That's James Franklin, just because I'm thinking like guys that aren't currently employed would be sort of where I'm looking there, and guys who
could be cheaper because of that,
and just got huge buyouts, right? Like I think that's a good point. That's part of it with Franklin.
I do have another one though.
With Auburn, are we in the Auburn ties?
Yeah.
Are we okay?
Charles Kelly. It may be a little early. But like I had the Terry Bowden comp to him where it's just like, hey, it's a guy in-state at a smaller school, but he was very well liked here, and obviously a former player here, former assistant here. I think he would do really well at a bigger school. I think people are, because it's like the heck, you're currently going through it right now at Georgia State, where it's like you've got another former player that a lot of people thought, oh, maybe one day he could be the guy, and it's just not working out for him right now. Jacksonville State's 5-3; they're undefeated in conference play right now. Like that's the one where I think it's further on down the list, but like I think you could do a lot worse than a guy like Charles Kelly. That would be the other one where I would say just it's interesting. It may be a little early for a guy like that.
My next category would be coaches currently winning at the mid-major level, and I believe that conversation probably starts with John Sumrall.
I think it starts with John Sumrall, and I would say this is probably your most popular candidate among everybody's boards right now for Auburn, and I think for good reason. I've talked to several people who know John Sumrall, and I've talked to people in those circles in the past. A lot of people think Sumrall's ready for an SEC job. He wants an SEC job. This is the year to make an SEC move because now LSU, Florida, and Auburn, potentially Kentucky, maybe others could come open.
Can I testify briefly about John Sumrall because of my Troy women's basketball connection? I got to know Coach a little bit during his time at Troy. I know you know some folks at Troy and but so back in. This would have been before he coached his first game, but after he was hired. So I'm thinking this is spring of 22. Mm-hmm. Troy's women lose in Pensacola as the top seed in the conference tournament. They thought they were going to go to the NCAAs. They lose that game, so there's no NCAA tournament for them. They're crushed, and they drive back in the rain on the bus to Trojan Arena, and there's like a crowd of people waiting to welcome them home. And one of those people was John Sumrall, and he was there front of the line in the rain, waiting to welcome the team home. And I always thought like that was, I always found myself rooting for him to do well, because there were small gestures like that sort of revealed, a little bit about what kind of person you're dealing with.
He's a football coach, man. He's a classic kind of football coach. I think he's got that. He worked his way up. You look at his resume. This is a guy that was a GA, and he was at the FCS level, and he was at Troy, and he was at Tulane, and then he, gets an opportunity to come back to Troy. And
there's some of that with Dillingham's resume too, right? As far as like the climbing the ladder.
I'll give you another one here in a moment. I don't know if he's going to be on your list, but you've got a situation there where, he inherited. Troy had 3 straight losing seasons under Chip Lindsey, and he has back-to-back double-digit win seasons, back-to-back Sun Belt titles there. Has a good first season at Tulane. He's having a good one right here. I know they lost and did not lose. Like it was not a very good game earlier this week. but they're well on their way to another double-digit win season, potentially at Troy at Tulane. He's a guy that just gets it, I think, as a coach. Defensive, he's in his 40s.
Regional ties.
Great regional ties. He's from Huntsville. Obviously coached at Troy, coached in the league and played in the league at Kentucky. Like he's familiar with it, and he's a guy that a lot of people say he is hungry to go to an SEC job and prove he's going to be a winner there, because he's been a winner as a head coach now at Troy and at Tulane. He was my Pat Dye comparison, because it's just like, an assistant who's at the mid-major level, who has cut his teeth, winning at smaller schools, ready for a jump, ready to be eager and say, hey, I want to go back to the conference that I played in. I want to go back to the conference I was an assistant in, and I want to win there as a head coach. And defensive guy as well. The other one, I don't know, he doesn't have Auburn ties. He's not a mid-major guy on this list. I'll tell you the other one I put the Pat Dye comp for, and that's Brent Key at Georgia Tech. Brent Key was an excellent offensive line coach at Alabama. He went back to his alma mater at Georgia Tech, ended up becoming an interim who stayed permanently as the head coach. I know Tech lost yesterday, their first loss of the season, but they are, had back-to-back winning seasons as full-time head coach, has taken Georgia to the wire, has played Georgia more competitively the last 2 seasons than Auburn has played Georgia, and has a team that has the potential to win the ACC this year. Look, does he move on from his alma mater? I don't know. It'd be tough. But this is a guy, offensive line coach. They've got the number 3 offense in the country. They're using Haynes King as a sledgehammer of a quarterback. They're throwing the ball really, really well. They're super explosive. He's one that I think makes a lot of sense. Does he ever leave Tech? I don't know. Is this going to be a lot of interest from a lot of places where he can stay and be at his alma mater? Potentially. But he's another one, that guy who gives me kind of those same kind of Pat Dye vibes. He's another guy in his 40s, kind of old school, kind of, has that kind of mentality that I think with time, both Summerall and Key would be guys who would do really, really well at any job. And I think, but fit what Auburn does.
The other name of guys currently coaching mid-majors that I would be intrigued by if there was buzz one way or the other is Alex Golish at South Florida.
And I don't have a comp for Golish this would be hiring somebody that's kind of unique.
Some folks would say Alex Golish is Lane Kiffin when Ole Miss hired him. Like, this is a guy, and he doesn't necessarily have the NFL experience and the USC experience, but this is a guy who was a big-time SEC offensive coordinator who is now winning in his first head coaching job at a place that was, he inherited a mess.
He inherited a big mess
at South Florida, and found a quarterback and is and probably has one of the 3 or 4 best mid-major teams in college football this season, and announced it with that thumping of Boise opening day, and then won in Gainesville earlier this year to crank the heat on Billy Napier. Cody Burns is his offensive coordinator down in Tampa right now. I don't know if that impacts Auburn's interest in
Golish makes a lot of sense.
I suppose if Golish were to get a big time job, Cody could be a candidate to take over at South Florida with his resume so far. But no, Golish, he was with Heupel at South Florida and Tennessee before taking the South Florida job.
And he's following kind of a similar path to Heupel, where Heupel he won at UCF, and Tennessee was like, this is the guy that we want. He's going to be the one to help us get out of the wilderness, and he does. Could Golish be that guy for somebody else? Potentially. He's got experience in the SEC. The other one I mentioned, and I gave him the Brian Harsin comp in the thing, and look, just because I compared him to Brian Harsin doesn't mean he would be a failure as a head coach at Auburn. I'm just saying, as a candidate, this is how it would line up. How about the guy who just beat Alex Golish? Ryan Silverfield of Memphis.
Yeah, Memphis.
Now, this is a guy who has never coached in the SEC. Mm-hmm. It's like NFL and like small school and a lot of Memphis experience. But Ryan Silverfield has done a lot of winning at one school at the Group of 5 level. And people really like him because Memphis now has a shot to maybe crash the party.
And I would point out, and I don't know how this is going to inform Auburn's coaching search.
Yeah.
But I was certain when Auburn was looking for a women's basketball coach that John Summerall or that John Cohen was going to prioritize major conference and especially SEC experience, and he hires Larry Vickers, who had been at Norfolk State like his entire time. I think if you find the right guy, you can overlook the fact that it's like Silverfield. It's predominantly small school experience because sometimes winners win, right? And
I think Cignetti's a great example of that. Yeah, I mean, I think Cignetti's is a perfect example of that. I just think like for Auburn, you're not going to want to completely zig off to where you were, with the Harsin hire, where it's like, okay, now we get this guy who's never been in the SEC, never recruited down here, and what is he? How's he going to fit? And he didn't.
Goalish to me would be what we were talking about earlier, where if you're going to correct and potentially overcorrect on quarterback from Hugh Freeze, it would be like, Alex Goalish, because he got some credit for what Tennessee did at quarterback with Heupel.
That would be because I think he calls plays, doesn't he?
Yes, and he's also play caller.
And that's one that I think you're going to have to work your way through that one.
Yep. And I don't know if there's I like Charles Huff at Southern Miss. I think he's doing a great job. I like Tyson Helton at Western Kentucky. I don't know if I like them for Auburn in this cycle, but those are other mid-major winners.
Eric Morris in North Texas.
Yeah. Oh, another quarterback guru.
I think Arkansas should hire him.
These are names. Yeah, the last couple of guys I think we mentioned there. I don't think. Look, I think Goalish can wait for a really good job with what he's doing at South Florida right now.
I think Eric Morris would be a really, really good hire for somebody. Yeah. I mean, North Texas might make the playoff this year.
How about this? Next category. Is there anyone who Auburn could look at where this would be their first head coaching job? Are you looking at are there any coordinators around the SEC or even the NFL that you would think would be potentially in this category? I think
if you're trying to run the Kirby Smart, Dan Lanning.
If you were looking for something like that, and that hasn't been Auburn's.
Schumann would probably be the one. I don't see Auburn going the Ryan Grubb route at Alabama.
Grubb is a name that folks have asked me about. I think that would be that'd be interesting. But you're right. It'd be a. I
think Auburn's going to want to prioritize guys who are winning right now. That would make sense. And so,
there's nobody who really springs to mind.
Yeah. There's no Kirby. There's no Dan Lanning right now.
If it
would be Schumann.
Yeah, I mean,
Glenn Schumann.
I'd be interested if SEC teams were kicking the tires on Colin Klein this offseason after what he's done at A&M these last 2 years. I know a lot of folks think Kansas State would be the eventual destination because he was a star quarterback there in the 2010s. But
I would be interesting.
I think Colin Klein might
really like that offense.
Yeah, I think Colin Klein might be as interesting a coordinator.
Now you're at a point that was like Brian Hartline.
Yeah,
is the other one because I don't really see Matt Patricia as a college head coach. I could be wrong, but I just don't.
I know there are people.
Brian Hartline would be the other one I would think.
I know there are people that have speculated that if Lane Kiffin were to leave, Ole Miss might take a look at Weiss Jr. just because he's been the right hand man for a long time. I don't know if someone else would want to. Yeah, I don't know if somebody else would want to. Yes, exactly. Someone else at the D1 level potentially, but for Auburn, I don't know if I guess Klein would be. Okay, if you wanted to interview, especially depending on what A&M does this year, if you wanted to, wanted to think about it, maybe. But there's not a. Mm-hmm. There's not a coordinator who would be getting his first head coaching job that stands out the way there have been.
Hartline's the one Hartline and Schumann would be the two where I'm like, okay, I can see where the vision is there.
And I think you've had those in previous cycles. Will Muschamp was that for a while before getting the Florida job. He was the assistant coach that everybody was just certain would be.
Lanning and Smart were always the big
Kirby,
ones.
Yeah. And then I guess you get into I did sort of derisively say it was the clearance rack, but
I think you meant by terms of savings, money wise.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more about some of these coaches have dents and dings, right? Because
James Franklin makes sense for a school that wants to just get back to winning, and I know it's the big game that eluded James, and obviously it fell apart for Penn State and just was going sour. I don't know if you want to be the school to be. Look, here's the thing, Dan. Coming off of the Hugh Freeze tenure, do you want to be the school who's trying to do celebrity rehab here? Right?
One of the things that went wrong with Hugh Freeze was his attempt to fix quarterbacks. How about Auburn? We're not trying to fix a coach. We're not trying to
that's not your job.
It's not the car wash.
No.
Yeah. I'll give you another example of this.
I don't think Brian Kelly would work at Auburn. No.
A couple of years ago, when Auburn was moving on from Harsin, I said, if if Urban Meyer gave you the impression that he was healthy and motivated and really wanted to be a college football coach again.
Again, this doesn't have to be the rehab clinic.
But like 3 years ago, I was thinking like, if this guy really wants to get back into it.
But Dan, last time he was a coach, it was not good.
I know. But the last time he was a college coach, it was extremely successful at Ohio State, right? The last time he was the NFL didn't work. And I'm not trying to campaign in any way for Urban Meyer. What I was saying was 3 years ago, in a different situation, if that guy was what you needed him to be, yeah, maybe. I was stunned to see, I think it was Joel Klatt, who said like one of LSU's first 2 or 3 calls should be Urban Meyer, which is just wild to me to be advocating for Urban Meyer right now as a coach for one of these jobs. But a couple of years ago, it was like, okay, well, maybe you do that. But no, I agree with you. Like after the Freeze experiment, I think, like, and this is and you know what? And then getting back to Jimbo Fisher, like Jimbo Fisher lost 11 of his last 22 at A&M.
Yes.
So it's like, do you want a coach who is coming off a job where it ended badly at Auburn?
And I'll say this, there's going to be, I guess we can wrap up it here. DJ Durkin's the interim. There's going to be people who love to say, oh, well, the defense is working really well. Why not make it DJ Durkin? My thing with that is this, and I get the argument for the pro DJ Durkin crowd. I understand because it's working. Like defense is working. When DJ Durkin was a head coach, and you can just limit this to on the field, it was not going well. It was not going well. He had 2 losing seasons at Maryland. Obviously, the Jordan McNair stuff and everything that came after that adds on to it. But I wonder, me just speaking out loud, I wonder, is DJ Durkin going to end up being one of those guys that was better off as a coordinator than as a head coach? And that happens. And I don't know. But that's the thing I would like to keep in mind. If you have an open market, right? If you are competing in the carousel and you have a list of candidates, I don't think you necessarily need to default to, well, just run the Kevin Steele playbook that you didn't do back in 2020 with DJ Durkin. I don't think it has to be the default option, is my point.
I don't think Durkin as a candidate at Arkansas is all that crazy if they're going for a full search and they want to look for guys who have had recent success on one side of the ball. I would
just be wary of, was not successful as a head coach, went back to being a coordinator, and then jumping back into a power conference head coaching job, like directly. Like I can't think of very many examples where that's worked. I know, like at least Kiffin had that turnaround at FAU. And
maybe this is a little bit unfair, and it's not at all a judgment on DJ Durkin's ability as a coach. I don't love the idea of promoting from within after a tenure like the one you just had. And
that's the other thing too. That's the other thing too. It's just like you can say, well, you want to keep these guys on this roster and you want to have kind of. It's about to be the 5th straight losing season unless Auburn beats either Vanderbilt or Alabama. What is there to continue?
What was the Bob Seger song we were talking about at the very beginning of the show?
Turn the page.
Turn the page.
Turn the page. How long have we gone?
We are entering minute 79.
Okay, we have some time to do some basketball. All right. Before we go, let's talk a little basketball because, as we said, Auburn basketball gets underway on Monday. You'll be hearing this on Sunday evening.
Huge cheer.
Rick Smith, huge. That was funny, man. That was about as funny as it.
I mean, that and the dog were the 2 biggest cheers of the actual game, right?
Indy had a great flight, by the way.
An all-timer.
All-time Indy flight. Can't believe Auburn let her down like that.
Buzzed me. I was on the concourse. Yeah. Right in front of the right in front of the press box. All
right, so let's talk. Auburn opens the season against Bethune-Cookman on Monday night. We can talk some of that looking ahead to the Bethune-Cookman. I'm hoping. I have not written it yet as the time of this recording. I'm hoping to have a basketball preview out in the morning, on Monday morning, so that you guys can read that. Monday night, obviously Auburn and Bethune. Before we get to that, Dan, though, Auburn-Memphis, Auburn 100, Memphis 71 exhibition in State Farm Arena. This looked very different from the first exhibition against Oklahoma State in a number of areas. I think, real quick, don't want to be a Debbie Downer, I kind of think Memphis might be low-key not good. They may figure it out. They got to shorten that rotation. They're picked to win that AAC. It's not a very strong conference. They could probably be back in the NCAA tournament. They did not look like a very good basketball team on and they didn't look like a good basketball team in that second half against Arkansas either.
I'm always nervous about talking about unforced errors on a basketball court because the defense plays a role when you throw it away. Memphis was making those kind of mistakes though. That was like, I mean, I was nervous about how much of this I want to give as far as credit to the Auburn.
I do
defense,
think Auburn's defense played well,
but they were they were absolutely forcing the issue. And Memphis just seemed completely unprepared for some of that stuff that Auburn threw at them to begin the game. I know it was a different starting lineup. It was,
how about
that? And sort of an interesting looking kind of zone to begin as well. And
I know it's been several days since the exhibition, but like we didn't do it for the Kentucky game. How about a rapid fire observe from this? Ooh. Maybe we can and it doesn't have to be we might not do it preview wise, but yeah, I'll start with Auburn's defense in this game. I thought
you'll do two each.
Yeah, we can do two each. I think Auburn's defense, number one, Auburn's defense in this game, I thought really, really did a good job of executing and showing improvement on what had ailed them against Oklahoma State. They knew Memphis was going to do some of the same stuff Oklahoma State did. They've got quick guards. They have guys who wanted to go downhill. Auburn did a really good job of preventing them from doing that effectively. I thought they played a ton of zone in this game compared to normal, some traps, some half-court pressures and stuff. And Memphis, at one point, Stephen Pearl said after the game, at one point, they looked up and Memphis was running zone offense against Auburn's man-to-man defense because Auburn was in the gap so much they thought they were still in zone. And so it was very good, very well connected. Instead of leaving guys on islands, this looked more like a cohesive, not quite the amoeba defense, but like very much like this was – five figures out off of one hand type of defense, which is what I do. Everybody thinking, everybody working in coordination with one another.
And for a team that's so new, right? For so many new pieces to be dancing the same dance, on defense, that's really impressive and a really positive sign to go from what it looked like against Oklahoma State to this. I'm gonna go with the major key. How about that with the master key as number two? Because Keyshawn Hall is just he's gonna be a matchup
20-point game. He's
gonna be a matchup problem for practically everyone Auburn sees the rest of the way. This guy is his ability to score in different ways. You can't just take one thing away from him and think that's gonna be enough. He's relentless. And he's
as good of an isolation scorer as I've seen at Auburn in a while.
And he seems to have some pro moves in the isolation game, and that's it's just going to be I can't wait to see what a full season of Keyshawn Hall looks like.
He's going to draw a ton of fouls. He's going to go to the free throw line a lot. I'll make a prediction. I think he leads Auburn in scoring this year. I think Tahad Pettiford's going to be close, and I think Pettiford's going to be very, very valuable, obviously, because he's going to be an assist guy too. Todd, 5 assists, and before his first turnover in this game was really, really good. But yeah, just Keyshawn Hall. Another 20-point outing. He's just going to do this a lot, and he's too big and physical for threes, and he's too quick for a lot of fours, and that's fun to watch. And he's got a pretty good jumper as well. He's got an outside shot that he's very confident in,
and he's got a little bit of the Miles Kelly and Denver Jones in that he was the focus. Like he was the focal point of the scout when he was at UCF because you wondered about the team around him. He didn't have a Todd Pettiford playing with him. Few people in college basketball did last year. And on a team where you've got several things to worry about, the thought of adding of having Hall as he's not a complimentary piece. He's obviously he's obviously one of the main focal points here. Yeah. But you've got to worry about some other things with Auburn's offense, and that makes it tougher to just hone in on him. Like you can decide, hey, plan A, number one priority is stopping Keyshawn Hall. That could
a lot of guys who can score off of that.
Yeah, that could open things up. That might not be as easy as it was at UCF.
And I'll tell you, for a four-man, the unique kind of way he plays on offense, if this Auburn offense is going to go fast like they did, almost 80 possessions in this game, and I guess Memphis did turn the ball over a lot in this one. He's a face-up four who lives in attack mode is going to be the best one to have on that. All right, number 3 for me, big flip. Philip Jovic, last 2 weeks we had heard, hey, I know that first exhibition for Jovic, it was, was doing a lot of thinking, and it feel like he might have been a little step slow to some stuff, kind of late to react on some things. He played really well in this game. Was all over. He drew 4 trips to the free throw line in the first half. This Memphis team was bigger than Auburn in the front court, especially with Keyshawn Murphy not getting to play. He did play more than expected, but he didn't get to play a ton. 11 points, 3 boards, 2 assists, plus 24 and plus minus, only behind Keyshawn Hall at plus 26. There was a difference when he was off the floor. He got kicked in the stomach towards the end of the game. He was off the floor, and Auburn's rebounding completely changes, and foul interior defense changes without him off the floor. He looked like that. He looked like that kind of dude.
Seemed kind of, at times maybe overwhelmed against Oklahoma State.
Yep.
Right, like being fair about it, like not the whole time.
To go from that
yes.
to 2 weeks later, like the dunk he had to start the second half, which is one of the best dunks I've seen for like a big man at Auburn in a while.
After seeing him against Memphis, you can wonder if he was a little overwhelmed in the moment against Oklahoma State, because you see that ability play through against Memphis, and you think, okay, well, there's a reason some of the best teams in college basketball of late have dipped into European leagues to bolster their roster, especially with young athletes, guys that probably wouldn't have considered college basketball not all that long ago, or would have struggled to, I guess, because of the sort of murky professionalism, like it would have struggled to be eligible for college basketball not all that long ago. And now you've got these guys being able to contribute. I mean, we've talked about Klavzar, right, at Florida. And the way he's helped out. They got Kondo too, who's Australian. Auburn reaching over there and getting a guy who looks like he's going to be a really important part of the front court. I'm very excited about Phil and what and what he might have for Auburn this year.
Yeah, big flip, man. He's well on his way. And here's the thing with Phillip that I'm interested in, Dan. We hear about, and he did it in this game, Elijah Freeman leading in rebounds. Looks really, really good crashing down there. Sebastian Williams-Adams doing a lot of the dirty work, some of everything. If Phillip Jovic can be that kind of dirty work, little thing guy on top of what his skill set is on the offensive end, it's going to look real nice. It's going to look real nice in time. And again, one game, but a 6'8" had to play the center spot, had to fill in at center against a team that had a couple 7-footers, looked like he belonged, and even dunked over one of those 7-footers.
I feel weird about Tahad not being one of our 4, but we talk about Tahad all the time, and he's going to be a gigantic part of what Auburn does every night. The other players in the backcourt, right, like Magwood, Bashir getting some shots up like that. I think that's my
Bashir's catch and shoot game is ridiculous.
Yeah, that's my, because it's almost like
Kevin Overton having a good game on defense. Yeah,
it's almost like
getting some good shots.
It's a given that you're going to get a level of production from Tahad Pettiford that gives you a chance in almost every game on the schedule. Seemingly, it's how the rest of the backcourt helps out, how much you need that from them, and what they give you. In the case of players like Bashir. I think especially Bashir and Magwood, because they're making the jump to D1 basketball. Bashir's jumper is just
pure,
overflowing with sauce, right? And then
I don't want to burn
like a pub sub, right? There's sauce everywhere on that.
I don't want to burn anything again with practice. Don't want to report, don't want to get in trouble or anything like that. But I'm willing to say this. There was a shooting performance recently at a practice in a drill with Abdul Bashir, and it was jaw-dropping what the final results were. And I'll leave it at that. You're like right. he did something shooting the ball in a drill where it was like at the end you saw the number or you heard the number and you were like, that's not normal at all.
Even on a couple of the misses against Oklahoma State and then the makes against Memphis, it reminds me of when you saw like Chad's highlights from junior college and you realize like, oh, this guy's willing to shoot. Like that's in his range and in rhythm. And it's like you can do that from there. And I think, yeah, as Bashir gets more and more comfortable in college basketball and with and familiarize himself with the speed of the SEC game, like some of those shots, I think he's going to be he could be very popular at Neville this year, right? Because you could call in air support sometimes, and it's Bashir from.
It's Miles Kelly. Remember what Miles Kelly did in the opener last year?
Yeah, it could.
He's got that in his bag.
It could be Bashir, with heavy artillery.
You mentioned
from the outside.
You mentioned Magwood. Turnovers, trying to do a little too much, pass the ball, but 15 points in this game. I mean, a lot more confident on the offensive end.
His offensive game's nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he had talked about it before the game. He's like, I just needed to get my confidence going. Well, he looked pretty confident. In fact, at times passing the ball maybe a little too confident, but you'll live with that. You will live with that. Because I think the highs are going to be pretty high for him.
You think they're still sort of figuring out how much he plays with Tahad and how much of it's sort of.
It's been barely any. It's been a straight 1-2, and I think that's going to be fine. We'll see. I think what helps is that Overton, Bashir, and Freeman are like. You're going to want a couple of those guys on the floor pretty much at all times. And then if you start playing Hall at the 3, it gets even more things. So, big win. 100 points, 71. Memphis was not in that game at all. Auburn's up 9-0. They have a couple kill shots around halftime. They're up 20 most of the it was like 22 minutes, final 22 minutes. It's just it was one-way traffic.
If it's a kill shot in basketball when you score 10 unanswered, what happens in football when your opponent loses 10 straight and then comes and beats you? Is that
it's a firing?
Apparently. No, that is
dismissal.
That is looking at the what's the word on Murph? I guess that would be the other piece.
Played more than they thought he was going to.
The fact that he was able to go at all is a good sign because it's an exhibition game. And
I wouldn't be surprised if against Bethune-Cookman he is not playing a full load of minutes yet. One, I don't know if they're necessarily going to need him to do that, but two, like Stephen Pearl was saying this after the game, he's just got to get in shape. And it's not like, oh, you're out of shape. It's like, yo, dude, you've been hurt, and you were not in the same game shape as everybody else has been because of the time you've missed. So I think that's the priority for him. The fact that he didn't get to play a little bit more, and he got some color in that game too. Yeah, I don't know if worked, ran the blade a little bit.
Crimson Mask.
Yeah, So I think that was a really good sign for him. But again, it's helpful. You got some more Apurim out there, and additionally, you felt good about Jovic and Sway getting heavier front court minutes in this one, and being able to be flexible off of that. All right, Bethune-Cookman, Dan, Auburn is opening with one of the more fascinating teams they have opened a season with. You remember last year when it was like Bruce Pearl was talking, man, Vermont could come in here and really give Auburn the business, and Auburn put them in a trash compactor pretty quickly. Don't think that's
I had something to do between the drive and the Vermont game, and I think by the time I got to Vermont, I was like, oh, this is the.
Yeah. Bethune-Cookman's not that good. Like they're not going to have that preseason kind of buzz. And Auburn's not going to be that good right at the start of the season. Obviously, that was the best season in Auburn history, and it started off with a bang. Fascinated by this Bethune-Cookman team, though. It's a team that's predicted to finish first in the SWAC. Everywhere you look, they've got something quirky about their roster and different that you're just their situation. How about it starts off with the fact that their head coach is Reggie Theus, the only head coach in Division I sports who is also the athletic director. He's the athletic director of Bethune-Cookman. Their best player is the 6'8" wing, Dr. Bradley. He was awesome at Arkansas Pine Bluff. He started his career at Cal State Fullerton, then went JUCO, then went to New Mexico State, got into some heavy legal trouble at New Mexico State with the scandal that ended up really pretty much shutting down that program for a season. It ends up at Pine Bluff. Now he is at Bethune-Cookman. Last season, he was 20 points a game, 9.5 boards, 4.5 assists, nearly 3 steals, and a block a game, shot over 6% from the field at Pine Bluff.
Is ULM's football coach still the AD there? Because, since John Hartwell left, Brett Vincent.
Yeah.
I forget about that, but it's like there aren't that many people coaching a football team or coaching a team at all while also serving as AD. That's not a thing that happens for. Remember, Derek Dooley was Derek Dooley was La Tex AD when Tennessee hired him away as the head coach. But no, that is that's an unusual step. And Reggie Theus, this guy's had an incredible life in sports, right? And a star athlete, celebrated broadcaster, NBA assistant coach, He's
in the UNLV Hall of Fame.
He was
I think his numbers retired at UNLV.
He was the star of the NBC sitcom Hang Time in the 90s, which was like Saved by the Bell, but it was about a basketball team, a high school basketball team, and the star player on the basketball team was a girl. A young Anthony Anderson was part of the cast of Hang Time in the 90s. But you don't. I mean, it's yeah, and now he's leading a really interesting Bethune team into Auburn, looking to make some headway in their conference.
Dr. Bradley, Stephen Pearl said, looks like an NBA player on film. Just built like that kind of wing. He's the preseason SWAC player of the year. This is a very wing-heavy team. Tallest player on the team is 6'8". Only one of those guys kind of plays like a big. The rest of them are very slash and dash, kind of scrappy basketball team on the wings. They didn't shoot the ball well last year from deep, and they weren't a very good free throw shooting team, but they're going to come at you with pace, speed, length. They're going to attack the basket. And so it's, again, kind of like with Oklahoma State, kind of like with Memphis. It's going to be another test of Auburn's defense to be like, all right, can you hold up against a team that's going to throw a lot at you in terms of their athleticism and their length and their speed. But this is a team that is expected to make the NCAA tournament this year. This is a team that is expected to win the SWAC. And this is a great team to start the year with. Auburn's KenPom spread is 23 in that game. So kind of keep that in mind. But very fascinating. This is a team that was better on defense and on offense last season. They added a couple more shooters. But it is a fascinating basketball team, to say the least. Daniel Ruzan, 6'8" forward for them. He's another SWAC first teamer. He played at Bishop Gorman in Vegas. Was the only player to start every game last season for Bethune-Cookman. He's come back, so he knows his team really, really well. Seneca Willoughby, that's an insanely good name. Taller guard for them, really good assist to turnover ratio player. Shot the ball particularly well last season.
He's all SWAC second team.
Yep.
I mean, you've got three of their starters are preseason all conference. Yeah,
they got a boomerang transfer in Jacoby Hetty, 6'6" guard. He went to Central Michigan and then came back to Bethune-Cookman. From Chicago. Guy who's a 15-point scorer in the last couple of years and was one of the more effective players in the MAC last season.
Bradley probably would have been preseason conference player of the year, but Deshaun Ruffin is back at Jackson State. That's a guy who I think, like, if you go back a couple of months, he's back at Jackson State after a good season. He was one of those guys, and you have a couple of these in mid-major college basketball where everyone says, "Oh, if they go in the portal, yeah, they're getting a huge bag from a contender." And I don't know, whatever happens behind the scenes to keep a guy like that home, or if he, just the loyal kind of guy. But Ruffin's back at Jackson State. If it weren't for that, I think you'd be talking about Dr. Bradley as preseason SWAC player of the year. Also on the SWAC, Charlie Ward. Don't forget, coaching at Florida A&M. So you have a couple notable ex-pro athletes in that conference as head coaches.
They got a 6'4" guard, Arteria Morris. Was a former 5-star McDonald's All-American out of Dallas. Top 20 player in the country coming out of high school. Played his freshman season at Texas. He was in JUCO. Has not had great numbers the last couple seasons, but at one point in time was one of, he's battled injuries. He's had to deal with that. At one point in time was a really sought after player. Pretty talented kid. Jordan Johnson, a guy who won the SWAC regular season title at Southern last year, 6'4" guard. He's a guy who is going to who's got plenty of experience coming in. They've got some forwards and rounding out that roster, forwards and wings. Auburn's going to have a height advantage in this game. They're obviously going to have a talent advantage, but with Opurum and with Murph, you're going to have two bigger guys than everybody else on there. A guy like Sway and a guy like Jovic is going to be as tall as their tallest player. So you got to keep that in mind heading into this game. But yeah, it's a really interesting matchup that I think I'm really interested to see, Dan. Can Auburn continue to hold up on defense, right? Don't give Bethune-Cookman the easy ones. Hold together. I like their potential to put up numbers in this one. You look at last season, Texas Tech scored 94 against them. Let's see, Minnesota scored 79. West Virginia scored 84. Mississippi State scored 87. lot of the better teams they played put up some good numbers on them last season, and this is an offense that's trying to figure out how to make it all work without really good three-point shooting. So,
just feels like Auburn gives you a lot to try to defend right now. We'll see how teams handle it, but I think between Tahad and now Keyshawn Hall's ability to create for themselves, and the thought that you have some other guys that are learning how to create for themselves, but also have teammates that can create for them and can get good shots, and the team's commitment to playing fast. I'm intrigued by how it goes tomorrow night.
In his previous 4 seasons at Bethune-Cookman, Reggie Theus, his teams have gotten better as the season has gone on, except for one of them. Only one of them took a step back from where they were projected preseason. Last year, they finished preseason 280 or postseason 286 on KenPom. They're 236 this year. So this is we were talking about this in the interview with Burgo. This is kind of a sweet spot game. This is the type of opponent you want to play that could make the NCAA tournament, that is going to keep you locked in, but you're not going to go in there and just roll the ball out and just beat the tar out of them. Like you're going to get challenged for 40 minutes. That's a team that's going to be hungry. It's a team that's going to want to out something to prove, because what's the thing, Dan, when you play these small conference teams now? You play well against a small conference team and you hop into the portal, people are going to pull this game up on film. What did you do against Auburn? What did you do against – they play Miami later they play Miami later in the week. They play Indiana. They play Missouri. They play Arizona. They play Oklahoma State. Like, what did you do in those games? And this is their first shot at doing
these games are opportunities for the team and the program to get a needle-moving win and a game that could be tremendously important. I mean, it's not about necessarily making the NCAA tournament as an at-large if you're a team in the SWAC, but a win or a close game over Auburn could matter in the computer rankings if you make the NCAA tournament, as far as where you're seated and what they do with you. But then you're right, for the individual players, if they want to play basketball at a bigger level, whether it's moving on in college basketball or playing professionally someday, game against Auburn at Neville Arena is a nice thing to have on the resume if the game goes well. Being able to point to your success as an opponent of Auburn at Auburn. Look, I mean, we've seen guys turn into Auburn players with that formula, right? There have been some players. Auburn saw Janai Broom when he was a mid-major player, and then he eventually came to Auburn. So yeah, these games can matter even more in the portal era because they can be part of your they can be your calling card if you come through.
All right, thanks guys so much for listening. It's been a busy weekend already. You got the couple of Freeze stories. I guess I realized I put up 3 stories in about 6 hours. The Observer, don't get used to that. That's a very, very unique time. This podcast will go up here on Sunday evening. Planning on having a basketball story up in the morning. As we recorded this, Auburn announced that DJ Durkin and John Cohen will be available in a press conference at 1:30 tomorrow afternoon. So you could have something off of that as well. Obviously, Auburn basketball plays tomorrow night. Those observations will be up on Tuesday. So super busy time. If you're not subscribed to the Observer right now, this is a perfect time to hop on board, because we're going to have the rest of football season, the search, everything that goes on with that, basketball season getting going. You got the podcast, you got the newsletters. This is the time to hop on board. AuburnObserver.com. Check it out there. If you're not already, go look at the coaching candidates list. Go read some of the post-freeze stuff, and then the basketball stuff will be out throughout the week. Auburn got 2 games this week in basketball. So the next time Dan and I will do a podcast, we will talk Auburn Bethune-Cookman. We will preview Auburn Vandy in football, and we will talk Auburn Merrimack in basketball as well. It's going to be a loaded show, and whatever we get from John Cohen on Monday. So it's going to be a loaded show. It's just for subscribers, though. So AuburnObserver.com, subscribe there. This podcast is free. The one later in the week will not be if you're just checking us out. So we appreciate y'all.
Subscribe to the Auburn Observer and buckle up.
2, 3, 4. My condolences.